Good Friday morning, Mount Olive family and friends of Mount Olive, those who are tuning in to watch another Friday devotion. We appreciate each one of you who takes your time to watch these with us. Let me get to sharing my screen with you. So this week we've been doing the YouVersion app. It's the devotion Glory, Rewrite Your Story, Glory to Glory. So this actually, this week's devotions have been a result of our last Sunday sermon, or our last Sunday service, where the Baker family came, and we still call them the Baker family. I guess it's the Collins family. I call them the Baker family. I've known Judy and long time, Winford, but the Collins family, I'll say, and how Alyssa, was able to give her testimony of her son Sailor and what God had done in his life after he was born. We're thankful that God is still on the throne and He's still able to work through the lives of families and still in the times that we're living. Each one of us have went through something, how God got glory for something in our lives or how we have responded. Mine may be a little different than the other ones that you have. Let's go back here. It says, mine is the time God used a 5-gallon bucket of paint for His glory. And we'll figure that out just a little bit later on. But that's my theme for this week, the time God used a 5-gallon bucket of paint for His glory. The scripture I'm going to use is in First Kings, and that's chapter 17 through 9 through 6. And some of you may already know what that is. But let's go over the verses there. It says, verse 9, God is speaking to Elijah, and He says, "Arise, get thee to Zarephath, which belongeth to Sidon, and dwell there. Behold, I have commanded a widow woman there to sustain thee." Now, just prior to this, Elijah had just told King Ahab that there would not be any dew or rain for these years until Elijah tells it to rain again. Now, James speaks of this time in James chapter 5, verse 17, and it says, Elias, or Elijah, was a man subject to like passions as we are. And he prayed earnestly that it might not rain, and it rained not on the earth for the space of 3 years and 6 months. Now, Elijah, I guess, as you can guess, was not a popular fellow after this. So God told him to go to the brook Cherith, and God would supply him with food and water. So God starts testing Elijah's faith right away. First, Elijah had to believe that God had told him to go to this place and that God would provide for him once he had got there. So then God has ravens. They bring him meat and bread twice a day. He has the brook there to get the water. And you may not know this, but ravens were considered an unclean bird by the law. And because the ravens would eat anything, and I mean anything. So the people of Israel weren't to have anything to do with this bird. So Elijah had to have faith in God that God had commanded the ravens to bring him food. Now, eventually the brook dries up because of the drought, and the Lord has another faith test for Elijah. And that's in the verse 9. It says, "Arise, get thee to Zarephath, which belongeth to Sidon, and dwell there. Behold, I've commanded a widow woman there to sustain thee." Now, God, He tells Elijah to leave the brook, go to Zarephath. That's a city that was along the Mediterranean Sea. It was about 85 to 100 miles northwest of the brook. So depending on the actual location of the brook. And so there was a widow woman who would help keep him and would feed him. Now, by the way, Zarephath was not a city in Israel. It was a Gentile city in a Gentile country, and the widow was Gentile as well. So what was God doing, by sending Elijah there? Now, many Bible scholars believe that God was showing Elijah that one day the Gentiles, we would be grafted into the promise of salvation that Christ would die for. So before there was Paul, the Gentile evangelist, there was Elijah. So just wanted to make sure you may have known that, may not. So another little tidbit of information. Verse 10 says, so he arose and went to Zarephath. And when he came to the city, gate of the city, behold, the widow woman was there, and he gathering of sticks. And he called to her and said, fetch me, I pray thee, a little water in a vessel that I may drink. So Elijah, he goes as God has told him to, and he finds the widow. She's outside gathering sticks, and he asks her for a drink of water. Verse 11 says, and as she was going to fetch it, he called to her and said, bring me, I pray thee, a morsel of bread in thine hand. Verse 12, and she said, as the Lord liveth. Now this Lord she's talking about is actually, she said, as the Lord thy God liveth. She's talking about Jehovah, the same, one that Elijah had been talking to. She says, as the Lord thy God lives, I have not a cake, but a handful of meal in a barrel, and a little oil in a cruse. And behold, I am gathering 2 sticks that I may go in and dress it for me and my son, that we may eat it and die. Now, I wonder if Elijah thought, okay, I found the wrong widow woman. God, you said that you had commanded a widow woman to sustain me, and this one, she's as poor as Job's turkey, as they say. And she is gathering sticks to fire up her last meal. The thing was, this woman was not aware of any command from God. God had said, well, I've commanded this woman to take care of you. But this shows how God works in unseen ways and unknown people. Charles Spurgeon, he has a quote about this woman. He says, she does not appear to have been at all aware that she was to feed a prophet. She went out that morning to gather sticks, not to meet a guest. She was thinking about feeding her son and herself upon the last cake. Certainly, she had no idea of sustaining a man of God out of that all but empty barrel of meal. And he goes on to say, yet the Lord, who never lies, spoke a solemn truth when he said, I have commanded a widow woman there. He had so operated upon her mind that he had prepared her to obey the command when it did come by the lip of his servant, the prophet. So, God was already working in her mind for her to do what Elijah had asked her. And Elijah said unto her, fear not, go and do as thou hast said, but make me thereof a little cake first, and bring it unto me. And after make for thee and for thy son. Now the man of God, he calmed her down by saying, fear not, cast that fear away from you and go and do. That sounds like good advice for Christians today, that, we need to cast that fear away and go and do. That's what we all need to do. And then there's that little 3-letter word again, but. Now this but is now a trial, not of Elijah's faith, but of the faith of the widow, that a man of God meant her and her son no harm. So where's the faith part, you say, in this? Well, notice the last part of the verse. He says, make me a little cake first and bring it to me, and after make for thee and thy son. Elijah, he says, have faith to make mine first, and you will then make one for you and your son. So he's just saying, make me one first, and you go back and make one for you and your son. So that was the faith part that she had to rely on. It said in verse 14, for thus saith the Lord God of Israel, the barrel of meal shall not waste, neither shall the cruse of oil fail, until the day that the Lord sendeth rain upon the earth. Now notice that the promise and the blessing comes after the request. Elijah didn't say first that her barrel of meal and cruse of oil would last, so go make me a cake. He says it afterwards. The request for her to do something came first. Then the blessing comes. verse 16, and she went and did according to the saying of Elijah, and she and he and her house did eat many days. And the barrel of meal wasted not, neither did the cruse of oil fail, according to the word of the Lord, which he spake by Elijah. Her faithful response produced a wonderful blessing. So, how do we get back to this time about this bucket of paint? So, how does this story about Elijah and the widow have to do with this 5-gallon bucket of paint? Well, I want to tell you a story about our first mission trip to Puerto Rico and how God showed up right on time. We had 2 teams to go to Puerto Rico that year to help the elderly people there to do repairs and upkeep to their homes that they were not able to do themselves. So my team consisted of myself, my wife Teresa, Diana Salyers, Tina Colley, Annie and Abby Church, and Matt Mullins. We were given a man in his mid-70s who needed help with some cleanup at his house and painting and fixing up a room for a person to come and stay with him to help clean and cook for him. Now, the house that he had was at one time a duplex, or a unit in the front and a half unit in the rear. And we were doing the middle part that led into the rear half unit. Now, the government gives the homeowners 2 5-gallon buckets of paint to paint your house with, whether it's inside or out, you decide, but you only get 2 buckets and you don't get a color choice. You get what they give you. So our team got started in the middle section, which was 30-foot long and 12 to 15 foot wide, with a short L on the far side that was about 10 by 12 section. Oh, I didn't tell you about the house. The walls, inside and out, are poured concrete and concrete block walls. So, there's that was for the hurricanes that come through, so they will withstand the damage from them. So we scraped the old paint off as best we could, and we cleaned the walls down also the best we could. I cannot tell you how hot it was and how humid it was in that house. Now, when you're from the mountains of Southwest Virginia and you go to a tropical island, one thing happens: you sweat, and you sweat a lot. And we did. So we started in a small little L section of the big room, and we painted and painted and painted. And it was so humid that the paint would not roll off the roller. You would roll it one way and back, and the paint would just roll back on the roller. That is not a joke. And when we did get it to roll off, it would just bubble up and fall off on the floor. We had never seen anything like this and didn't know what to do to fix it. So we rolled and we dabbed with the brush the best we could to get it to hold on the ceiling and on the walls. It took most of our first day to finish that room. We started on the long section, and the same thing started happening. Paint on, paint bubble up, paint fall off on the floor. We can laugh about it now a little bit, but we remember this one bubble that started drooping from the ceiling, and it grew to about a 2 by 2 bubble, 2 foot by 2 foot, and it hung down almost 10 to 12 inches before it popped. We just stood there amazed that this was happening to paint. Finally, a mission group supervisor stopped by to check on us and the progress, and we told him that what was happening, and he said it was the humidity, and just do the best you can. Well, the best you can is not the answer when paint is falling off the walls and ceiling. We left that day feeling totally depressed and defeated. We had come to do a job and do it good, and the job was not doing its part. So on Tuesday, we went back and we started on the big section again, and it was the same thing. We talked among ourselves that the 2 5-gallon buckets wasn't going to get the job done the way things were going. We talked to the mission supervisor again about the problem to see if we could get more paint, and he said, nope, no more paint was available. So we used all the first 5 gallons more as a primer than paint. It seemed like to us. We left feeling defeated again, knowing we might not have enough paint to get the job done halfway right. So Wednesday was a day off for all the teams to rest up after 2 full hard days. And I remember praying Tuesday and night and Wednesday that God, you've got to show up. You've got to do something about this paint. It's not sticking, and now it's been washed off or stained by the pressure water, by them pressure washing the roof. They had came and pressure washed the roof, which was supposed to have been done before we got there. Well, it was done afterwards. So now it was, we come back, the pressure washer had been there. It's a tar and gravel roof, so we had all these stains coming down the wall, and it was just something that we'd never dealt with. This was it was not about us. It was about showing the love of Jesus to these people, and we wanted to do it right. It wasn't that about us doing a job. We wanted to make sure that they saw the love of Jesus. So we came back and we found that they had just messed all that one big room up. It seemed like that they had not pressure washed and then tarred the roof like they were supposed to keep the water from coming in. So a lot of water came in, and we just did what we could with it, basically. So Thursday, we split up into two teams. There was 3 on each team, and to go at it all again. Things were starting to happen all of a sudden. Paint was staying on the walls and the ceiling, and it was looking good. Well, wait, we have more paint in the bucket. So, we had done all that middle room and got it looking, pretty good. So I said, well, let's see if he wants us to do his living room. Well, he looked surprised. Well, yes, do his living room. It was about a 15 by 15 square. And so we painted his living room. Well, wait, there's paint still left in the bucket. Let's see if he wants us to do his bedroom. He looked surprised again. Yes, do the bedroom. We do the bedroom. There's more paint in the bucket. Now it's getting fun for us and him. I said, well, let's paint his kitchen and bathroom. Yes, paint the kitchen and bathroom. We kept pouring, and the paint kept coming out of that 1 5-gallon bucket of paint. We were looking for things to paint. We touched up the large middle room again. What more could we paint? We asked if we could paint the rear part of the house where he had stored a lot of his older furniture and stuff. And did we have enough paint left? He wondered. Did we have enough paint left? Yes, we have enough paint left. Tears, began to well up in his eyes and ours. We were experiencing the God thing, and God had stepped up and showed up, and he had showed off. As I like to say, we all decided to move all the stuff he had stored in the rear part of the house to the large middle section, and we painted all that back there as well. We basically painted his whole house out of that one bucket. Now, I know some of you don't believe me, and I know, and that's okay, but I was there. I saw it with my own eyes, and the others on our team will tell you the same thing. It wasn't just my prayers. It was all of us on that team believing and agreeing that God would make way, and he did. We can't explain it, but when God is in it, it don't need explaining. It needs believing. God is able to do in the big things and in the small things and in the paint things. So, by the way, there was still paint left in the bucket when we finished all of that. I told the elderly man in my broken Spanish to hang on to that bucket of paint to use in the future. And he said to me in his broken English, he said, special bucket, special paint, God's hands on it. And I couldn't agree more. So that's how God used a 5-gallon bucket of paint to give himself the glory. We don't know it. The how it happened, the supervisor came back and he couldn't believe that we had done all of that house. We were just supposed to do the middle section and the L, and we ended up painting the whole house. So, God is able if we just will allow him and just ask him to help us when things come our way. Go to God first. Don't try to do it on your own. I hope you've enjoyed this little devotion. I hope that you understand what I was trying to get across to you. I hope you enjoyed the story. It's a true story. But let's continue to pray for our church. We'll be having church Sunday in the gym again. I think we have some skits starting this week to go along with the pastor's message. So be much in prayer for all those who are in those as well. I hope you have a good rest of the week. And like I said, I'll see you Sunday morning. Thank you.